Hi there, folks. Welcome to the A Minute to Midnight Show. I'm Tony, and I'm coming to you at the moment from New Zealand for the next week or two, and then I'll be in Pennsylvania for a good while after that. But right now I'm in New Zealand, and with me I have Mondo Gonzales. And Mondo, it's really good to be seeing you again, at least on here. Unfortunately, we're going to miss each other in person this time round in a couple of weeks, because you'll be coming to New Zealand and I'll be in America.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to coming back to New Zealand. It really is one of my favorite places in the world, and kind of bummed again that you're not going to be there. But certainly, if for those living down there, if they're interested, we have the conference. We're going to be in Australia for the first part of May, and then making our way over to Auckland. And so if people want information on that, they could go to the prophecywatchers.com website, click on events, which is on the main tab, scroll down, and you'll see all the links to the registration and information where we're going to be at. It's going to be a great time. Yes,
I'm sorry I won't be there, because if I was in New Zealand, I would have gone. Like, it was great catching up with you last year in Auckland. So it's a shame that our paths are going to be crossing in different directions this time. But I would say to people, it's worth going to those conferences anyway. They're a nice place to meet a lot of like-minded people and hear some, teaching from you. And who else is going?
We got Billy Crone, of course. He's always exciting. And Ken Michael's going to be there. And then I'm not sure if Tom Hughes is going to, or Brandon is going to possibly maybe live stream in. Right. So I know there's some potential for that.
Okay, so it should be good. So that's in Auckland. Can you remember what date exactly? It's early May. I know that.
It's like May. I think it's the 10th, the 9th and the 10th, May 9th and 10th.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, folks, if you're in New Zealand and you want to go and see these guys, you want to book now anyway and sort it out. So, right, now, on to things happening, and it's real interesting. I mean, at the moment, I'm focusing a lot on the technocrats and where they're all heading and what stuff's going on, and it's going so rapidly. So I'm just interested in your thoughts on some of that for a start anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me that when you look around the world, really since, I would say 2020, with the whole world coming into the COVID age, and then you see this worldwide movement, whether the United Nations was a little bit involved for sure, but it was primarily the World Health Organization, as we remember, seeking to provide guidance, if you're going to use that word, as it relates to the health crisis making its way around the world. But what was fascinating during that time is just the shift not only in how the world operated, where you had governments, United States government, you had other, certainly all through the UK, Europe as well, the nations down, you guys for sure, down in Australia and New Zealand, looking to this unelected body to provide guidance and also a certain level of controlling of the narrative, controlling of the information. And if you went outside of that consensus, you were either censored by social media or by the government itself. Many people were arrested or other things, attacked, canceled. It was fascinating to watch this unfold. And it's interesting to me, I keep very, very, very close tabs on all the research that has been happening since 2020 as it relates to COVID and everything else. Yeah. And the research now that has come out because of 1 billion people, for example, being, vaxxed. And I don't even really care necessarily about that. I'm more interested in that the research that's coming out is showing horrible things that have happened, side effects and other things for many people. But the amazing thing is that this is all peer-reviewed evidence that's coming out that is now cannot be hidden anymore. But what I found fascinating was to watch these organizations again, like the World Health Organization and others, censor any sort of question.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those questions that came to be at the time now have proven themselves to be accurate.
Yeah.
So, but boy, you could not go outside of that. The other thing that, in getting back kind of to the main thing here, is that so you had two major ways in which the governments of the world were guided. One was, again, through these unelected world organizations. The second one was through these very, very wealthy individuals like Bill Gates, as an example. And so I remember even in America, and I've done presentations on this, where you have some of these left-wing organizations like Politico or Slate Magazine, and they're writing articles really in late 2021, and they're asking the question, when did Bill Gates become like the leader of the world?
Yeah.
And so they were recognizing that here's a guy, again, another unelected person who's a software engineer, certainly has been involved through his philanthropic work around the world, especially in Africa and other places, but a lot of very poor countries where the Bill and Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have gone in and done certain things. But the point being is that these ultra wealthy people are now dictating to governments, they're transcendent over national borders, and able to influence the world in all these ways. And you're like, well, when did that start happening?
Well, this is right. And actually, talking about that COVID thing and that, because the WHO just had another pandemic simulation recently where they got together a whole lot of people from different countries to do another practice run for another one, I can't even think of the name of the event this time, like Event 201 they had previous to COVID. But this is another one of those, and they had catastrophic contagion was the one they had a couple of years ago where they were simulating a pandemic this year, and then they've just had another one. And so it's like, they are looking at how to coordinate for the next event they trump up one way or another. Next time I think it'll be even more officious than under COVID, unfortunately, because we haven't really seen any accountability at all to the people so far that engineered that crisis. And you mentioned the vax and I never had the vax. But I'll tell you, I've had more health issues since COVID than, ongoing things, you wonder about. And what are they putting? It's all in our food, it's in the air, it's in the water, it's just everywhere they're bombarding us with stuff. And then you have these technocrats, like you say, in positions of power. And Bill Gates talking up that whole AI thing, for example, recently, that, mostly humans won't be needed soon. Mm-hmm. We'll be able to just have a leisure time, and everything else will be done by AI, which of course is not the way it's going to be. That's not what they want. Depopulation is ultimately what they want. But then you've got Elon Musk and you've got Jeff Bezos and all these others. Look at the power they're wielding, and Larry Fink, and just these names that we all see up there, and these oligarchs now with billions and billions of dollars behind them, unelected and having huge amounts of power.
It's fascinating because so back in 2020, Gary Stearman, he had written an article for our magazine in November of 2020, and he brought up the question and just asked, people talk about looking for the Antichrist, and but according to the Bible, if you believe in a pre-trib rapture, which not everybody does, but if you do, you won't see the Antichrist. So, but he said, but regardless of that, what we do know is in Daniel 7 that these 10 kings, so-called, come first on the scene. And he asked a question, and he wondered, you wonder, could these be technocrats? And so he asked me about it, and I said, Gary, I'm gonna look into this. And so I ended up looking into the Bible and kind of doing a deep dive, and coming to find out that it is interesting that when you look at the passages of Scripture in Revelation 17 and Daniel 7, Revelation 17 is quite clear. You have three characteristics of these 10 kings there, that they are they don't have a kingdom, so they're kings without a kingdom. That's a little bit odd, because generally a king that's the very definition. They have a geography, they have a land. So these are kings without a kingdom. Secondly, it says that they operate like kings or as kings, which is very specific. It's using a simile. So I think in terms of, if I say, hey, I have something like an apple in my hand, it means that it's not an apple. It's something like it. So the Bible says, again, they're kings without a kingdom. They are like kings, which means they're not like the normal kings. But secondly, it describes that they give their power and authority over to the beast and they make this agreement in Revelation 17:13 to rule with him for 1 hour. So as I was looking at this, I started looking at some of the lexical understandings of the Greek word basileus. And what it's the greatest lexicon that you have in the modern New Testament age, or in the age now for the New Testament, is called BDAG, BDAG. People can look it up. It's about $150 if you want to buy it. And but what it says in there is that the word basileus, that's often translated primarily as king, a king of a kingdom, also is known as one who yields, not as a king, someone who yields unusual and transcendent power. And I thought, okay, wow, look at this. So now you have the context saying that these figures are basically don't have a kingdom. They are like kings, but they also have unusual or transcendent power that they hand over to the beast, the Antichrist, at this time. And so I began to do some research, and what I was documenting during this time, this was probably around April, May of 2021, and what you found, and even now it's way more pronounced, is, let me give you one example. You look in the world and you say, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, the people that had the wealth were primarily governments. Governments had wealth, and they're the ones that were dictating and warring against one another. Well, now we're entering in a very unusual time where some of these wealthy technocrats who are, again, using technology, some of them are more wealthy than individual governments. And so, for example, I'll just give you some stats and then we can talk. But you think about Elon Musk as an example. You mentioned him. In 2020, he was worth $29 billion. Okay, you think, oh, measly $29 billion. He wasn't the richest. He wasn't even the richest guy around. But over the next couple of years, all of these technocrats during that COVID season and the lockdowns, Jeff Bezos, of course, his wealth went straight up. They added over $7 trillion just in 2021 alone. And then what you see is, as of January of 2025, so within 5 years, Elon Musk is now worth $420 billion. So he increased his wealth by $400 billion. No one's in that class anymore. And that's primarily because of his Tesla stock and market cap and stuff like that. But you look at all the things that he's involved with Starlink, he's involved with all the satellites, he's involved with Neuralink, with the brain thing, he's involved with SpaceX, now he's launching and other things. Of course, he has Tesla, he's got a boring company, he's got the open AI. So he is like the quintessential technocrat oligarch guy. And of course, so we're talking about this for years now, and then Trump gets elected, and who do you see at the front row of the inauguration? All of these guys. So there was a little bit of vindication to say, could it be that what the Bible is describing is again, not literal kings with kingdoms, because it says they don't have kingdoms, but very influential, powerful, capable individuals who are giving all of their power and capability over to the Antichrist on that day to rule with him. And as we're watching, it sure looks like this is exactly what we're beholding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, another person on that list that isn't talked about so much, but has a lot of power and is a Trump backer and also actually has New Zealand citizenship, and that's Peter Thiel. He's another one of these big guys, and with Palantir, with the military software AI stuff, the big deals between Palantir and the US government just recently. So he's another one of these people with enormous power. And I heard Elon Musk in an interview, and Ted Cruz asked him who's the most intelligent person you've ever met or whatever. Musk is thinking in his head, and definitely one of them, he says, is Jeff Bezos. And so, these guys are supposedly in competition to each other on some things, but when it really comes down to it, nah, they're all on the same page.
Absolutely. And what we're watching is the advancement of their ideas. And it's interesting, too, because one of the other figures that isn't known so much for wealth, but he is known to be tremendously influential in the 21st century, even going back to late, is Klaus Schwab.
Yeah.
And so you look at Klaus Schwab with the World Economic Forum and establishing that organization in 1971. So you think about 50 years, over 54 years now worth of influence, seeking to raise up their young global leaders program. Of course, as we know, Trudeau from Canada and so many of them are graduates of this program, and being put out to accomplish their goal for globalism. Yeah. The second thing that Klaus Schwab is known for, and this is all in his book, The Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He says clearly, look, there's no way we can accomplish our goals without the use of technology. And he lists over 21 different types of technology that they want to see implemented in order to accomplish, again, their globalist agenda. So when you think about that as the pattern, and then you have these extremely, again, beyond imagination, wealthy individuals that are coming in, not just with wealth, but they're coming in connected with all of these various technologies, as we mentioned, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, robotics, vaccines. You look at Bill Gates, he's the largest private owner of farmland in the United States. All the things that he's involved with, prisons. It's just, their fingers are very, very broad, and they're using all of that in order to accomplish what it is what we see, the goals of the World Economic Forum and others.
Yes, and I know some people go, no, can't be, but Vladimir Putin was one of the first ones to graduate from Klaus Schwab's Young Global Leaders, but it was not called the Young Global Leaders, it had a different name then. And Schwab himself has basically proudly admitted that 2 or 3 years ago, just before the Ukraine invasion, but he specifically mentioned Vladimir Putin having gone through that. So that's one thing. I'm also thinking when you're talking about all the AI and robots and all that, and Elon Musk, look at this Optimus robot that I covered that recently in a video. It's staggering, because Tesla's got the money and the backing and the ability to manufacture these things in bulk like no one else has. And so that's coming, and robots are going to play a huge role in this. Now, AI and that, I don't know, have you come across the fact that now there's computers with human brain cells integrated with silicon chips, and that's scary. And it's not just in theory now, they've actually got them, working computers, faster than a normal
Absolutely.
computer.
Well, and this is what they're realizing is that, and we look at it and we're not surprised, they call this in the field biomimicry, where they're able to look and, for example, at a bird, and they'll be like, okay, well, let's look at a raptor and the way that its wings are designed, and let's try to mimic that as relates to airplane design or whatever. So as they look at this too, they look at the brain or cells and the ability for the information that the brain has, the amount of data. When you think about the stimulus of your eyes, your senses, or your ears, driving down the road at 100 miles an hour or whatever, and your brain is able to process all of this incoming information so extremely fast. They're jealous of the ability of the brain as a computer. And so what they're also finding is that with DNA and other like digital information, memory storage systems, and also the brain is electrical. So it's really easy as well. It's easy for us to conceptualize, but you see the stuff that Neuralink is doing and saying, look, we need to figure this out because that is the key in order to translate, digital stuff here into the brain, and then the brain, its ability for storage capacity and quickness is very inspiring to them. And so if they want to master it, and when you start thinking about, and again, as you mentioned, they're using certain mice brain matter in order to store things, in order to figure out how it works and the transfer rates. It's pretty amazing what we're looking, but also scary at the same time.
Well, there's an Australian company from Melbourne that's actually going to be selling these little computers with human brain cells integrated with silicon chips and a life support system in the box, and they're going to be selling them as from June this year, I believe, for $35,000 each or something like that. But so this is it. It's not just science fiction; it's actually happening, and somebody's actually going to be producing and selling them. So where this goes from here, when it talks in the Bible about the image of the beast and being given the ability to speak and all that, it's like, oh man, this just looks like science fiction is becoming fact, lining up with the Bible.
100%. I mean, we look at that. It's that phrase in Revelation 13, 16 through 18 has been there for 2,000 years almost, and yet you begin to know, how does he give life to the beast? What does that even mean? And now we begin to see how this is absolutely possible. And the way the text reads, it's this image. The image is the one, if you follow the pronouns, okay, so to speak there, the image seems to be the one that's causing the mark of the beast and the limits on the buying and selling. And you're like going, okay, that's pretty fascinating. So if you had some sort of super artificial intelligence, which was connected to a quantum computer, which is pretty much unlimited computing capability, and then you had some sort of biogenetics as it relates to storage and the ability to store infinite amounts of information quickly, all the technological recipe is immediately available for something like the image of the beast to come alive and to have control of things. It's, again, science fiction. It's been in the Bible, and now we're beginning to see, do we fully understand how that's going to come to play? No, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. But we're beginning now to grasp at least the beginning parts of the possibilities of how this could come to pass, for sure.
And then Satan himself could possess that supercomputer AI image thing, and then there would be no stopping him from implementing all the things that he wants to. So yeah, it's happening all so quickly. It's like you wouldn't have even thought of this being possible. It seemed like just a distant, science fiction dream, nightmare. Now it's starting to be very, very real.
Well, when you look at again, just that amount of wealth for Elon Musk in 5 years. So where's it going to be in 5 more years? Will he be the first trillionaire? And you see the advancement of the whole cryptocurrency world. The decentralization of that. I know that you guys, well, at least Australia, is already implementing their digital ID system. I mean, I've played videos on it. It came out about a year ago. How easy it is, how wonderful it is, and now Europe is just saying they have an October deadline to bring their digital euro online. Yeah. So, I mean, these things. Where will we be in 5 years in all of the advancement of technology? It's fascinating too that people wonder about Trump. People tell me he's the Antichrist, and I don't think so. But nevertheless, they also tell that either he's the Antichrist or they'll tell me he's the savior of America. Okay, so you got one or the other, and the truth is obviously in the middle. But it's fascinating to me, though, that what Trump is doing, and I'm not saying that he's doing this intentionally, but by surrounding himself with Elon, and then he's only been in power for a few months now. And seeing what he's doing in the sense of technological advancement, like we have Stargate, bringing all these technocrats that are coming in wanting to do this, even these good things let me give you an example. So Elon Musk is coming in under Doge, and he is trying to find waste. Well, okay, I don't know why anybody would be against finding waste, but what he's recognizing, he's coming in with all his brainiac young kids that are brilliant, right? They're out of the box thinkers. What's fascinating is, so they're coming in and their goal is to find $1 billion of waste every single day. But what they're also seeing is, oh, look, the Social Security Administration, man, some of the technology and the software they have goes back 20 years. Oh, look, the Department of Transportation, man, that goes back 15 years. So what they're doing in the midst of all this is they are finding ways to update all these departments, and then able to communicate with one another. So when you look at that from a perspective of waste or just efficiency, right? It's the Department of Government Efficiency, not just the government waste. So the fact that Musk is coming in to the greatest superpower, right, in the history of the world, and the wealthiest in that regard, and realizing, let's fix this. And he has the ability to fix all this. So imagine 4 years from now, the efficiency of this government, which then can be modeled and patterned to others. So when you start thinking about the efficiency of the beast kingdom, he's bringing in and testing this giant. I mean, think about the mammoth nature of the beast system around the world. We know it's very technocratic. It has to be in order to be successful and efficient. So what he's doing right now, I don't think Elon Musk is a Satanist. I mean, again, or that I think he generally means well, at least, and I could be deceived, but at least that's the persona. But regardless, even if under the guise of finding waste, he's bringing in all these things that are now going to be at the hallmark of efficiency, which then later can be hijacked by somebody else. That'll be like, hey, thanks, Elon. You made it so much easier for me to control things. So we're watching God's plan unfold, regardless of whether it was Biden in the White House or Trump. It doesn't matter. All these things are being implemented.
And you've got the real ID from the 7th of May. You won't be able to fly and so on unless you use a real ID, or if you've got a passport, you can use that. But you won't be able to use your driver's license or something else to fly in America. So that, again, is another part of this whole, it's sort of in it of itself, it doesn't seem that bad, but it's all part of creating that infrastructure where everything is trackable, traceable, stoppable, and it all fits in together, and there's just no place to hide from it all.
No, and what we saw was, this is why really the turning point, I think, towards the final end game, and I'm not saying I'm not a prophet to predict how long it would be, 5 years, 10 years, 20, I don't know. But the turning point absolutely is going to be 2020, because what you saw there, we saw it in America, where in America you had, as an example, requirements to go into stores that you were vaccinated.
Yeah.
And you had to show your vaccine pass. But I remember talking to a friend of mine, and I said to him, "Hey, I heard a rumor that you have fake vaccine passport cards." She goes, "Yeah." I go, "Send it to me." And so I looked at it, and I could see that it just had a signature on there, and I was ready to roll. I mean, I had my fake card. I never needed to use it. I never used it once. But the fact of the matter is, if I would have walked into any sort of store, I could have just said, "Here it is." But there was no way to verify in a centralized system my little card. Well, we know they learned from that, and they recognized, well, there's no way to do. We have to find a way to verify this. So this is where you now have the digital IDs going all around the world. Mm-hmm. But one of the components is that they're integrating into that is the health passport component. So not just like, again, if I give a fake ID to a police officer, I get pulled over, he's going to go to the central database and look it up and go, "Hey, this is fake. I can see you're not in the system." Yeah. So this is what if I come with my fake one, they're going to go, "Look, my fake vaccine passport, and they're going to go, you're not in the system. This is fake. And then, of course, what we're going to see is just like it's against the law to have a fake ID or a fake passport. It's a criminal offense. It's not a criminal offense yet for your passport, your vaccine passport, but we see that coming as well.
Yeah. And then it can be a criminal offence to not vaccinate your children. And in certain states, in the US, I believe that's already the case, that kids have to have their vaccines or
to go to school.
Yeah, and so they've got you that way as well. And it's like people's freedom of choice is being eroded. And there are a lot of people that don't want all of these vaccines. The Bill Gates, here's your
70
ticket
vaccines.
to health.
Yeah,
you need
exactly.
this vaccine and that one and the other thing, and smiling away there, But don't forget the next pandemic's going to be worse, and everyone will know about it. Smile, and this is it. It's like they've kind of got you in this system in every way, shape, or form from birth now, pretty much, and that's scary. When you're trying to be outside of the system. I mean, I don't have little kids. My kids are all like well and truly grown up, but I've got, grandkids and stuff. And it's like, man, this is a tough time to have children if you're not wanting to be part of this whole system. And I can see it only going to get tougher and tougher. And I mean, imagine living in China or somewhere like that.
There's no freedoms. We know that for sure. And it's fascinating too that even in China, China did not implement any of the mRNA vaccines. Isn't that interesting? They had their own vaccine, but it was not an mRNA.
Uh-huh.
And so they knew better than to take that and to, their 1.3 billion people or whatever. I thought that was very telling.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I don't trust RFK Jr. To me, he's another flip-flopper that says all the right things when he's not in a position to pull any strings. But then when he is, it's like suddenly it's like, oh, no, I'm not anti-vax and I'm, and blah, blah, blah. And so it's just, I don't trust politicians for a start. I don't care where they are or who they are. You don't get there unless you've gone through their system of, being approved, I think. And I don't care who they are, whether it's New Zealand or America, whether it's Trump or whether it's Luxon, our Prime Minister, or whoever it is, And you look at Canada, I mean, you get rid of Trudeau and you get somebody probably just as bad or worse.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's amazing to see, like, in these, the way that the machine is running. You see it all through Europe right now.
Yeah.
You see populism in the movement. But so what do? Well, the lawfare that we saw in the United States, from 20 to 2024, in the sense of trying to jail Trump. Well, now look at France. Now they're just, Le Pen is she's declared to be ineligible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the courts. Yeah. And so you see this in Israel as well.
Yeah.
All through America, they are using the judicial style in order to simply just to declare fiat. But what's great about what's happening here is, we have a separation of powers. And so what the Trump administration is doing with these lower federal courts, district courts, they're simply just ignoring them. What are you going to do? We're the executive branch of the United States. So what are you going to do? You don't have, according to the Constitution, you have no authority over the executive branch. That's why it's, by definition, it's a separation of powers. So even to some degree, our Supreme Court cannot tell the executive branch how to run its area. And so they can squawk, they can scream. But what you do see is, it's amazing to me that these federal district courts, they have no teeth. They have no army. They have no police force in order to enforce any of their judgments. And so which again, this could go both ways, right? So you can have renegade things if Biden was there and he could go do things and there would be no way to stop it. But So this is interesting. You kind of see a disintegration in some ways of between our three branches, the legislative, the judicial, and the executive. So how's that going to play out? I mean, that's a very interesting thing to watch and to see the development over the Trump administration the next 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I believe Trump was put here by the powers that be for this time, simply because he's the man they want to do the stuff that they want. I've never believed Trump's an outsider or anything like that since a long time back. So no, I think Trump's there to do a job, and he's got to give the Christians, the evangelicals, something that looks good, so to keep following the guy. Meanwhile, he's bringing all these other things in, which will be used big time for this beast system. Anyway, I'll leave that on there because I can spend ages on it. But before, so we can wrap up, have you got any other things that you want to add or finish off with, specific things? I guess obviously we want to point people to God ultimately in all of this too. So not into fear, but into faith.
I will say that absolutely perfectly said, because, I've been watching, prophecy since I was a teen. I got saved at 18. So I've been watching for 31 years, 32 years now. And, in all of it, never once in watching all of the prophetic developments has this ever caused fear in my heart. It's actually been the opposite. It's been excitement, because as we watch all this unfold, we see that God has a plan. He's revealed this plan up front. God is not being second guessed here. Oh no, what's happening here? God is bringing human history to an end. And what's the goal? The goal is to install His Son, Jesus Christ, as a king in Jerusalem. And this is Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage? Why do they conspire and plot against the Lord? And the Lord just laughs. This is the only place in the Bible where it says the Lord really laughs like that. And so when we look at this, as people are watching, I hope that they look around and say, even unbelieving family members that I have, they're like, things are a little bit weird. This is unusual. And I'm like, yeah, 2020 changed things. Yeah. And everything is heading immediately, boom, towards this center end point. And so what's the goal? The goal is, if people aren't a follower of Jesus, if they don't have their sins paid for, they are going to be a sitting duck for deception. Jesus said the first thing out of his mouth, he said, when it comes to the end, let no one deceive you. Take heed, be careful, be intentional, let no one deceive you, Matthew 24:4. So as this is kind of the goal of why we have these conversations, is to say, hey, everybody, look, we're opening the Bible up. We're seeing these correspondences between what the Bible says and what we see out in the world. And the goal is, it points us to, just like Jesus said in Mark 13:37, I say it over and over. Jesus says, after giving all this teaching, he says, what I say to you, I say to everybody, watch, be ready, be alert.
Absolutely. And by gosh, if you're in New Zealand or Australia in early May, go to those conferences and hear Mondo speak about some of this stuff. That's great. Awesome. I'm so glad we had this conversation today. So, yeah, it's been awesome.
Tony, always good, always good. I'm bummed that I'm going to miss you.
Yeah.
But I think the plan is probably we'll have a Down Under 3.0 for 2026. So hopefully we'll be able to see you then.
Yeah, that would be good. Cheers. Thank you so much for being here today. Also, folks, remember to subscribe to us at aminutetomidnight.com if you haven't already done so. And we do run A Minute to Midnight 100% by donations. If anyone's able to donate, it's always much appreciated, and you can do that at our website, aminutetomidnight.com. And all the music used in our shows I've written, played, and recorded. And if you want to download some of my instrumental music, you can find that at our website too. God bless, and God willing, we'll be back with another episode in a few days' time, so stay safe and keep your eyes on the Lord.